everyone, welcome back to Talkin Shop with ShopSabre. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the hidden costs that oftentimes commission-driven salespeople may not talk to you about. They may not want to talk about certain things, and they won't tell you certain things. And I think it's something that we need to talk about because specifically in today's world, we talk a little bit about import products in general, and there's a lot of sales guys that make a lot of money off of importing things, and I think it's really easy to get the water all muddied up. So, as always, though, I am your host, Brandon Bombardo, here with our very own weatherman, Nick Peters, dad joke extraordinaire.
It's very muddy out there.
It is muddy.
Speaking of muddy waters.
It is a muddy day. It's going to get muddier.
Our friend Alex from the marketing team is still looking for his car keys out in the melting snow piles.
Yeah, he'll find it one day.
It's the funniest thing I've been a part of for the last month. Every time we pull in the parking lot, find your keys yet? Nope, they're still in that snow pile over there, I think. And every time we get close to all the snow being gone, it snows again.
It's gone right now. You should
we
go
got to
check.
plow again.
It's gone. But yeah.
Totally random off topic.
No, totally off topic, but that's okay.
Whatever.
You know, I want to talk about this today, though, because oftentimes there are some hidden costs associated with import products, right?
Sure.
In our case, we compete against import equipment, so we'll talk a little bit about that today. But I think, you know, oftentimes we get misled by sales guys, and some of it's because of the way that sales are done in the world. And I think the car industry was where it started. The car industry used to be really kind of sloppy, and it's kind of gone away from the commission-driven mentality, and they've got to kind of a flat, hey, no commission, flat price, like, and it's kind of cleaned that industry up.
Smart.
Yeah. And it's something that I think is undervalued when you're buying a product, is understanding how the sales guy is getting paid. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because I think there's a lot that can get lost in the sales process, especially in the sales pitch. And it can really mask, you know, some of the hidden things that can affect you, the business owner. Low upfront prices oftentimes can blind you. It's, you know, being blinded by that, ooh, flashy price, you know? But it helps you turn a blind eye sometimes when you shouldn't. And some of the more obvious things end up costing you money later on that weren't as obvious up front.
Sure.
So, yeah, today we're aimed for helping business owners make more informed purchases and just think about some of the little hidden things behind the scenes. But first, we're going to get into some questions and comments that were sent to us throughout the week. Nick, you're going to start reading them, and I'm going to start answering. How's that sound?
Perfect. Question number 1. When does a boring head make sense for a CNC router in cabinetry?
It's going to depend on really your business volumes. I start there because there's a couple ways that you can answer that question. For one, if you do a lot of closets and things where there are hundreds of holes per sheet, it makes sense, right? It's going to save you time. Just doing cabinetry alone doesn't always justify having a boring head. In fact, we've got a video, Router Bob did a video showing that when you're cutting a cabinet, you don't often save enough time to justify a boring head. But when you're doing things like closets or, you know, applications that require a significant number of holes, it makes a difference in those applications. But the other thing that you have to think about is situations where maybe you need more bits. It's often overlooked that it can work like a tool changer, because rather than having a 10 position tool changer and having to put 10 drill bits in there and now have no positions available, you can put 9 drills in your drill bank and they can each be a different bit. And you might still only drill one hole at a time, but now you're not switching bits.
Sure.
So there can be some cost savings there as well. So it really comes down to that. How many holes, different size holes do you need to drill? But also, you know, what's the application requiring? So I think that's a good way to answer that and of course, talk to the sales guys. A lot of times our sales reps, they might look like the worst sales guys in the world sometimes because they're going to talk you out of spending money. But it's because they don't want to sell you something you don't need because, well, on par with this week's episode is they're not commission driven. So
right.
They're more interested in your application than their own. So
it sounds to me like you need to make a smart and informed business decision on your boring head.
This is true.
Whether or not you want to get it or not.
True.
All right. Question number 2. Why would you not just buy the largest machine you can fit? I can find cheap machines in China and get more table area.
100% right. You can buy cheap machines from China. That's, I guess, a good comment, I would call. But I think, you know, you said it yourself, cheap machines from China, right? So you answered your own question there. Like, you're getting a cheap machine from China. And again, I understand the thought process there. And some people are going to sit here and argue with me and tell me that they've had one and it works great and cool. Like, you can find a needle in a haystack once in a while, right?
You can find a good fuel pump that works for
Right.
a long time.
Sometimes you might find a good fuel pump. Good reference from last week's episode. But the reality is more table area isn't always a good thing. Not saying it's not a good thing, right?
But if you use that one large area, like 5% of the time you're doing work, what good does it do you?
Well,
especially like if you're trying to hold, like, I don't know, I always hear guys talking about using a table that's too big and having issues with hold down, right?
That's where I was going to go with it. As I was going to say, a large table is great if it's done right, but oftentimes people cut corners elsewhere because the table's so large, they don't size everything appropriately. So either, the accuracy of the table is lost over the distance because the rails and the bearings used don't maintain distance. So now your accuracy cutting up and down the table changes. But the other thing that is probably the number one mistake with big tables is undersized vacuum pumps. People end up with smaller vacuum pumps because of their power demands and things like that. And now the pump can't appropriately cover the surface area of the table. And so that's a big reason why I tell people don't buy more than you can chew, right? Because really, if you're not going to buy everything to accommodate that larger table, then it's probably a waste of your money. You're not going to really use it because if you're only putting a 4x8 sheet on a 6x12 table, you have to cover that area to ensure vacuum leakage isn't causing you hold down issues. So you have to think about your workaround. Now, 5x10 would be the most popular machine that I see people buying, but we build 6x12. There's just not a demand for people to buy 6x12 in every application, so I don't push that on everybody.
Yep. Question number 3. What is meant by the word closed loop motors?
Closed loop means that you're closing the loop off. So for you that are visually watching, like here's my motor, here's my controller, draw a line between the two of them, right? So it goes across, but now closing the loop would be going back. So, right, you're making a circle out of it. Rather than just a one-directional communication, it's coming back. So the motor is giving data to the control system. I appreciated your hand gestures there too. That was
drawing a straight line.
That was nice.
A straight line. Because you were like going all over, and it was like I was showing them what straight was.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Also, One Direction, great band.
Thank you. Back to the question. But closed loop means you're getting feedback in two directions. So the controller tells the motor where to go. The motor reports back stating it has gone there, it is in position, and where it's located. And therefore, if something ends up off in a closed loop scenario, there's going to be a warning, there's going to be an error, something's going to occur to inform you. In an open loop scenario, it's less accurate. It told you to. It's like me telling my kid to go to the pantry and put something away. I've told him, but the chances of him listening are diminished, right?
Sure.
And therefore, closed loop would mean I told him to go put something in the pantry, and he came back and told me, it's in the pantry, Dad, and
right.
confirmed that it's been done.
So to me, it sounds like, I don't know, to me, it's basically you have a list of operations it's going to perform, and it's checking the boxes as it goes on the list.
Right. Yes, that's a great way to put it. It's the GPS for your machine, essentially. It knows where it's at in real time.
And if something does happen, it knows where that happened, and it knows where to go back to
correct
restart.
That is correct. So
I'm a genius.
You are a genius. Any other questions there, genius?
No, because I'm a genius. I have answers. I don't have questions.
That's fair enough. Okay. Well, I'm proud of you.
It's a nice thing you said to me in probably 2 years, 1 month, and 11 days of work.
It didn't even feel good.
I know.
It came out of my mouth and it didn't even feel
look
good.
on your face.
Yeah, it didn't feel good.
It's like you just bit into a green pepper.
I was like, ooh, that was not good. Yeah, it was like a cheese pizza with a green pepper cutter.
Thanks for that.
Moving on. Nick gets mad when people don't clean the utensils for cutting their pizza.
That's common sense, but let's not get mad about that again.
So, nevertheless, we're going to jump into this week's topic. We kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's the allure of low-cost equipment, right? I think it's something we got to think about is because as you start to think about equipment and why cheap equipment is tempting, I think you start there is that it's the low initial cost that gets you in the door, right? That's usually what grabs your attention, that immediate savings that you're going to see. And it seems like a good deal, but especially for a small business, I think small businesses tend to fall for those deals more because they have less resources and therefore they want to maximize it. But a lot of times in those scenarios, the salesperson focuses on the deal, right? And how good the price is, and don't always mention the other things that come with the machine. They don't talk about the quality of the build. They don't talk about the components being used. They don't name things that make their products so good, right?
Yep.
If a focus is always on the price and the discount, oftentimes they're trying to wow, get you on the impulse purchase and not think about the things behind the scene.
And they tell you it's going to have a bunch of the things that you want or think
Correct.
you need, but it's not going to be necessarily the quality or what exactly it is that you need or what they're telling you it is.
Yeah.
They use vague descriptions of what it really is.
Well, I think, the thing that the salesman's not going to tell you, right, is the things that it doesn't come with.
Right.
Oftentimes, they're not going to say, this price is great, but it doesn't get this, this, or this, right? They're not going to do that because they don't want to heighten your sense of awareness. So, they're going to kind of downplay quality. They're going to tell you that it's the same as the other guys. Their production's going to say, they're oftentimes going to get focused on things that mean something to you, and money is always everybody's number one thing. So they focus in on the money, and if it's truly the same, you have to consider that the price would be the same then. People just don't sell the same quality of parts for way less, right? It's just like you're not going to build somebody a cabinet with the top of the line stuff and charge your cheaper prices. You have different lines of cabinets, you have different lines of signs and materials. Things cost money. And so generally, when you're buying higher quality equipment, it comes at a higher price, right?
Sure.
And it doesn't always have to be exorbitant, but nobody sells products more than they have to, especially in the world today, right? We all understand we have to be price competitive. But if what they're selling you is meant to grow your business, it's probably worth asking some questions, right? You don't want to be out of touch on pricing. I understand that, but you also don't want to be out of touch on quality and performance. And so what you need to think about is, what is the short-term price going to turn into in the long term, right? What does that mean in a year or two? What does the support look like? What's the maintenance look like? What the components you've used, what brand are they? Where did they come from? Who's the source of them? And understanding that a lot of times, like, who's the spindle manufacturer? Who's the frame manufacturer? Where did it come from? Did you build it or did you buy it?
And I'm guessing oftentimes they won't have a straight answer on a lot of those things, right?
I can't speak for that, but I think often, I think they have a straight answer, and a lot of times the straight answer is meant to circle back to price, right?
Sure.
But
I feel like it's one of those things where, not necessarily just with CNCs, but kind of in general, like if you call and ask questions on things, it's almost like they ask you a couple questions to get to the right script they're going to use.
Well, that's
the right
exactly
thing they're going to tell you.
A lot of times that I was going to say, that's what they do, is they oftentimes are reading off of scripts, and the cost of cheap equipment is what you have to a lot of times consider, is that it's going to increase your downtime eventually. And that's something people don't think about, is that as a machine breaks down, or your parts or whatever it is you're buying, it leads to longer repair times or missed deadlines. And those things are the things that catch up to you later on. And so, as your production slows, your lead times grow, which then costs you revenue, which then costs you customers. And it's these things that go on. So it's like, as you consider it, what's one thing the sales guys maybe aren't going to be honest with you about is the parts availability. Like, well, how long can I get parts for this product?
2 weeks.
Right. Well,
you don't know. They don't.
You don't know when they're going to
Yeah.
discontinue it, because a lot of times when you import a part or import a product, you don't control how long that product is built. It's built by somebody else. So when that factory or that company changes the model, discontinues something, does something outside of their control, they can be the greatest guys in the world and they could want to take care of you, but they can't because they don't control it anymore.
Right. And even if it's still available, how long does it take to get here from
right
overseas or wherever it's coming from?
Yeah. Nor are they going to, they don't want you to think about that. Right. They don't want you to think about the cost long term because it's such a cheap price today. They want you on that, but they don't consider that the cost could be eaten up in downtime. I mean, if you're down for 2 weeks waiting on a part, that's lost revenue for 2 weeks.
Yep.
That could quickly overcome any savings you had on the machine.
Plus spending a bunch of money on a repair part.
Right.
It kind of piles up on you.
Yeah, and then you start thinking about quality issues as well. That's something that people don't often think about, is that technology often leads to quality differences, right? There's a reason why certain technology is used in certain applications. And the one that comes to mind for me is rack and pinion versus ball screw. A lot of times you hear guys talking about rack and pinion versus ball screw, and I hear so often, my favorite is when we go to trade shows and I get to talk to people in our industry, and there's a lot of really good sales guys, and I love chatting with some of the people that I've met over the years. But something that's commonly shared amongst like the good sales guys in the industry is they understand that there's a time and place for both technologies, and they understand the ball screws being a value. It's the sales guys who try to act like ball screws have no value and that, rack and pinion is just as good. You can often tell that they're a commission-driven sales guy,
Sure.
oftentimes driven on the fact that they can't sell you a ball screw machine, so they're required to create doubt in that technology, right? And I think that's where, like, when you start to think about quality issues, is it often leads from poor quality components used and cheaper equipment. And again, we build machines with rack and pinion, and it's great. There's great machines with rack and pinion. There's just certain applications that ShopSabre just doesn't build a rack and pinion machine for, because we understand the accuracy is important in those applications in the long term. Like, can it cut the parts today? Absolutely. But as gears wear and tolerances change, that's what we're always thinking. Like, ShopSabre doesn't sell a machine for today's success.
Right. Long term.
Right. We're selling you a machine for tomorrow's success and the future success. And a lot of our customers own their machines for over 10 years. And so my concern always is, in 10 years, is that machine still doing right by you? And what's the cost of ownership look like in 10 years? That's where I kind of look at it. And so that's why you often will hear us pushing the ball screws. It's not saying that you can't cut it with a rack and pinion machine today, but it's that we know in 10 years it's not going to be the same, right?
Right.
And so, the other thing you think about is material waste. As machines make mistakes or things happen, it costs you material, and sometimes material is expensive. I mean, especially today, it's like, man, if I could turn my sawdust into material, I would, because it's cost me a mortgage to buy material.
Sure. Yep.
So, I think you think about that. And then the other thing that is often missed is the lack of support, right? I mean, oftentimes a sales guy, every sales guy is going to tell you like, oh, I'm going to be there for you. But if he's your local dealer, distributor, whatever, like, how well can he really be there for you if he's told every person he's ever sold a machine that to?
Not very well.
And
it's simple for him to just not answer you.
Well, it's not even that he doesn't want to. It's busy. I
Right,
can't be in
sure.
two places at once. So yeah, you're important to me and I will get there, but I can't get there till tomorrow. I can't get there till next week because I've already made a commitment prior to you.
Sure. There's 300 other people I told the same thing.
Right.
I
And that's the problem that you start to think about, is that the sales guys, commission-driven sales guys, they're worried about you writing that commission check. They want their money.
Yep.
And it costs you, the end user, more money, because that commission check isn't free, right? That commission check gets passed along somewhere. Nobody works for free. So the middleman or the commission check comes from you. Where oftentimes in a non-commission environment, you get the better deal. There's less overhead in between. Therefore, the better deal can be passed straight from the top to the bottom. The company and you win when there's no commission in the middle.
Right. Because most times you're going to have somebody that's selling you the things that you need, right? So
Right.
they don't have to deal with your questions and
Right.
wondering why you sold them something they didn't really need.
Correct. And that's my thing, is nobody cares about you more than the company that sold it to you. The commission itself in between has no feelings.
Right.
And so that's something I always think about. And the other thing that, often isn't talked about, probably not talked about enough, is the total cost of ownership. Like, as you own something, what is the life expectancy of that product? Well, nobody wants to think about the end of the life, right?
No.
Nobody wants to think about death, right?
No,
the
not at
death
all.
of a product. The
Right.
death, I sold life insurance for many years, and it's the worst thing in the world to sell because nobody wants to think about it, right?
Sure.
They can't benefit from it at the end themselves, and it's a part of life that nobody wants to have to actually consider.
Right.
So it's the same thing about equipment, though. Nobody wants to consider the end of life. What is it? How long is this equipment going to last? Where does it run out? When do I reach the tipping point? And I always remind people that it's like an hourglass. Everybody's new machine is a full hourglass on top, right?
Yep.
But it starts to drip out. Whose runs out faster? Because eventually you get to that tipping point where now the bottom's full and the top's got less in it. And now that usually is where you have worn a machine to the past its peak, right? Things get worn out, things start to happen. And as you get to that hourglass point, suddenly you're spending more time trying to make the machine do what it's supposed to do than you are gaining benefit out of it.
Right. Buying new parts, trying to upkeep it.
Yep.
Make it run
Sanding
like it did
parts,
before.
fixing
Yeah.
parts, whatever you got to do to get the machine to do what it needs to do. And sometimes you hit that point where it's like, am I spending too much money to keep this piece of equipment running, or am I better just to replace it?
Right.
And I think sometimes we hang on too long there, right?
Well, I mean, I think you made a big investment up front and
Yeah.
one that was like a big step for you in your business. So you want to get the most out of it you can, right?
Right.
To a point. Like,
Because
that's probably the mentality of
there's
why.
something I always ask as a sales guy. I've always asked my customer this: are you going to remember the price I sell you today in 5 years?
Hopefully not, because they're making way more money than that.
The answer is no. It's always no, because very few people can recall what they paid for something 5 years ago. They just struggle. They have an idea, but they don't remember it. They don't remember how much discount unless they go pull their paperwork, look it up off the top of your head when that machine is in your shop and a guy walks in and says, "What'd you pay for that machine?" Do you remember that Brandon gave you some free tooling with it?
No.
No, like nobody remembers that. That was an incentive that you forget about. But what you never forget, ever, is how I made you feel.
For sure.
You will
Yep.
never forget how the buying experience went. If I was terrible, which I'm going to assume that I've been terrible before because I'm human, you don't forget that. I've rubbed people the wrong way. I know that. Not purposely, but I'm human and I understand that. And I'm man enough to admit when I've had faults and I've made mistakes and mismanaged situations and spoke wrong and let sometimes my emotion get the best of me, just like you have.
Yep.
And just like the person listening to this has. We all are human. Nobody's above the next person. And some people handle stressful situations better than others. But at the end of the day, how you feel is what you remember. It's not the price tag. It's not anything else. It's about what does the machine do for me? How does it make me feel? How does this equipment, how's the buying experience? But how is the support? And that's the part that people forget about is the total cost of ownership is more than just the price point. And, again, the commission sales guy is going to tell you it's cheap price. It's the best price. But the price disappears in a year.
Yep.
The rest of what you're getting is what you remember.
Right. So hopefully when that guy comes in and asks you how much you paid for your machine, you're like, I don't know, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because their sales guy spent a week on the phone with me answering all my questions.
Yep.
They've always been there to answer the phone when I've had questions about issues that I had. Yep. Everything about the experience was great.
Yep.
So I don't care about the price.
Have you ever been in a situation, and I have, that's why I ask, is have you ever been in a situation where somebody asks you, how much did you pay for that?
Oh, yeah.
And your answer is not enough.
I don't know if I've for sure said not enough, but I've often said, I don't know.
Yeah, like I have said
no idea.
not enough. And it's because it's a tool a lot of times, right? One that comes to mind is, again, I'm a race car guy. Everybody who listens knows that. I bought some plates from Kevco. So shout out to Kevco. Kevco sold me a set of toe plates. And for anybody that doesn't know what a toe plate is, it's meant to set the toe on your race car, right? The tip in or out of your wheels. And the toe plates have magnets on them. So they stick to the inside of the rotor. They have tape measures built onto it. So one guy can set the toe on his car by himself. And so I bought them. And I had a buddy of mine ask that. He's like, how much did you spend on those? I'm like, not enough. Because no matter what they charge me, it's been a lifesaver.
Yep.
It's the best investment I made on setting up my race car to ensure everything's right. And that's the mentality of a tool. The price shouldn't matter because the value it brought to you, you forget what the price was, and no matter how much you paid, it wasn't enough.
No.
Like it's the support that came with it, the quality of the cuts you're getting, the performance of the machine has outweighed your expectations.
Because it doesn't make you think, my gosh, I spent $140 on something and it's
Correct.
the biggest piece of crap ever.
Right. You only remember the price when it's not worth it. Right. So, long-term hidden costs are often something that, you're not going to talk about, you're not going to think about because they're not sexy, right? Long-term hidden costs, the things that you have to consider, the training, the efficiency, the things you do later on, those things you don't think about up front because it's not sexy.
Yep.
Nobody wants to talk about that stuff, right? But I'm proud of that. ShopSabre offers really incredible support. So I want to talk about those things. I want to talk about the days that your machine doesn't work. I want to talk about the day that you screw something up and you break something because you're going to.
Yep.
Very few shops can go the life of owning a piece of equipment, no matter what you buy, not just from me, from anybody, and not screw something up at some point.
It's true.
It happens. Yep. Like every Bobcat, every tractor, every semi-truck, every truck looks pretty on the lot. Go look at one with 100,000 miles on it. Go look at one that's 5 years old.
Doesn't look as pretty, but she's still running because they took care of it and bought a good product, right?
Exactly. A lot of times, like, you're not as worried about the little scratch on it as much as you are the maintenance and how it was taken care of, the things that you don't ask up front, right? Everybody loves how pretty it is in the price tag up front, but in the end, it's how well has it been maintained? How long, have you had any issues with it? There's anything that doesn't run on it? Like, those are the things that in 5-10 years that, do you want to be able to say that the company still exists, that the parts still exist, you could call them and get support? Because those are the things that maintain value.
Yep.
And so, how do you make a smarter decision? Let's talk about that quickly. As you think about smart decisions and equipment decisions, well, first off, don't just look at the price tag.
Ask a million questions.
Right. Ask questions. Like, evaluate the equipment or the product or the parts or whatever you're looking at. Consider the efficiency. Right? What does it offer you? What's the power demands? What is the specs of what I'm looking at? And it's more than a price tag because two prices can look very different under the covers, right? You take the cover off and suddenly, that vacuum pump is half the suction of that vacuum pump.
Right.
Well, same price, but one's going to perform very differently than the other one.
And it doesn't hold the parts down on the same size table as good as the other one would. I mean, that right there is worth an added cost.
Right. Reliability is important too, right? If I can get parts, I'm going to brag. ShopSabre, I love bragging about this. ShopSabre has its in-house parts department. We have like over $4 million in parts inventory. Think about that for a moment. You're in the middle of a big job, something goes down, and we have $4 million in parts inventory. We can ship things out the next day, right? Sure. Or the same day. A lot of times you call me this morning, I can get it out before the cutoff today.
Can have it within a couple days.
If you buy something from overseas, can you guarantee same day shipping?
Zero chance.
You can't guarantee it, right? No, maybe there's a guy locally that has a part or stocks it, a dealer. But now let's fast forward 3 years and that machine's been discontinued. Do you think they stock the parts US side anymore?
Highly unlikely.
Probably not. Now you're scrambling, trying to figure out versus, I mean, our first machine, which we built 25 years ago, we can still support today.
It's fascinating.
It's
not many people can say that.
Right. And that's the biggest difference. So it's more than a price tag, right? You got to look at reliability, long-term impacts on your business. You have to invest in something that has strong performance. What does the reputation look like? What does past customers say about it? What's the maintenance look like? Do I have to spend a bunch of money on it? You know, a lot of times, again, that goes back to the rack and pinion versus ball screw. They're both very different machines. I mean, rack and pinion is a much higher maintenance system.
Sure.
It's not a sealed system, where a ball screw is a sealed system. So you have to consider that. Does that lead to better customer support later too? Less demand on the company because of less failure generally means better support, right?
Absolutely. More time for those people to help customers.
So as you think about like things that your commission sales guy won't talk to you about, you know, whether you're looking at a car or a truck, a tractor or a CNC machine, is what's my total cost of ownership expected to be in 3 to 5 years? And what do you mean by that, right? Because they might say that like, well, I'm sorry, what do you mean? What am I expected to replace? What's my maintenance look like for 3 to 5 years? What should I expect? What's the accuracy? You know, how easy can I get replacement parts and service? What is the service? What's my expected service life? When do I have to start paying you? Ask those questions.
What's the warranty include?
Yep.
Like, what does it actually cover?
Yeah. Like,
I mean, I think a lot of times people can say, oh, it's got a warranty for, 100,000 miles, but take something in at 60,000 miles. They're like, oh, well, that piece magically isn't part of the warranty.
Trucks are a perfect example of that. Yeah. You buy a truck and they talk about this 100,000 mile warranty, but it's only the engine, the transmission, if you've done proper maintenance, blah, blah, blah. But bumper to bumper runs out at 36.
Right.
And like, of course, your window regulator goes out at 38. Right. It's those things you start to think about. So what is covered for the duration of the warranty? Because sometimes, I mean, there are machines out there, and I know it, that we compete with. They offer 1, 2, 3 year warranties, but in the fine print, it does not include electronics, or it does not include the computer. And those things are a 90-day warranty. Like, so this 3-year warranty is on things that they don't expect to fail ever.
Right. That they know aren't going to really cost them anything.
Versus us, we're a bumper to bumper warranty, excluding consumables, right? I mean, bits, if you break a bit, we're not going to warranty a bit. But, there's a lot of things that we cover that maybe aren't standard by other people. And so ask those questions. Compare what your warranty, because there's a value there.
100%.
Also, can you provide me case studies or references, or is there a place I can read testimonials, or is there a way I can talk to actual customers? Can I come see your facility? Like, no matter what you're buying on a large investment, trailer, truck, tractor, don't care, CNC machine, can I see the factory where it's built?
Yes.
Because the answer should be yes, right?
Should be.
If I'm going to spend that kind of money, why can't I come look at it? I get it. You're not going to go look at the factory if you're buying a Bose speaker. Okay? I get it. But my point being is, we're talking about big investments here in your business. Things that are going to make a difference in the future. You're buying a bucket truck for your sign shop. Go ask to see the facility. Tell them you want to tour it.
Like something that's going to be like a main part and a mainstay of your business. So you should be able to see those things in action, right?
Right. I think so. To me, I'd want to. It's a really important part of my investment, is knowing who I'm investing in as well. Ask for a little bit of history. Hey, can I know a little bit about where the company was founded, how it founded, who's running it today versus who founded it and was running it? Why was there a change of hands? You want to know these things, because a lot of times people's reputation is because of the people, right? It's more than the product. It's the people that are running the organization. Well, they build a 20-year reputation and then they leave, and now they've only been running for 3 years with the new ownership, and the new ownership's reputation isn't what the old one was, but they're relying on the old reputation.
And eventually that's going to run out too.
Correct. I mean, that's something that you should be asking questions on. So there's questions you should think about. So it's just something I want people to think about today. I don't want to get real long-winded on this, episode. I wanted people to really think about where can they go with their business, right? What's the best way to get into something without getting misled, right? So summing it up, for me, cheap or imported products often are a quick fix, right? It's a quick fix for your immediate problem, but they have hidden costs that can add up later on. Oftentimes, in today's world, I think commission sales are kind of a dying thing. I mean, commission sales generally incentivize the sales guy to sell more, right?
Yep.
And that comes at your cost sometimes. They want to make a buck. They have life goals. Everybody has life goals, right?
A lot of integrity probably goes out the window though in some
I think there's some really good commission sales guys out there, I agree. But I think there's also a lot of people that just see a quick buck, right? And I think that's why a lot of quality companies have gone away from commission sales. There's incentives to their sales guys, but it's incentivized on their performance and a lot of times service driven more than it's actually price driven.
Sure.
Because they don't want you to sell. A quality company doesn't want you to buy the wrong product, right?
Right.
So quality machines usually have strong support. It's something I always remind people is quality products come with good support. A lot of times that you have to look at the bigger picture though to see that stuff. You have to ask them the questions that you probably haven't asked in the past, right?
Ask the tough questions.
Yep.
I don't think I think I had a lady call today that I talked to and she was like, we're really new to this.
Yep.
Everything I say to you is going to sound stupid. And I'm like, look, we're here to help.
Yeah.
And everybody, there's a lot of people in your shoes that have never used a CNC before.
Right.
That had the same question. So nothing's dumb. Nothing's, like something we haven't heard before. Like ask all those questions you need. And if we can't get you the answer, we'll get you to somebody that can. Like,
correct.
And just kind of, you can tell when you tell somebody that.
Yep.
Like the tone in her voice almost changed. Like she was almost more relaxed to like know that she was not alone, like in the situation or being somebody that didn't really know what they were doing.
Correct.
So I just think.
But that's who you invest in. That's what you get when you buy. Like, and I want people to think about this. Think about a product you've bought in the past that was imported, okay? And ask yourself, when has that let me down? And I want you to share that story because I'd love to hear, some of these common like, hey, something I didn't think about the last time I did this, and then I learned it the hard way. Share those stories. I think it helps other people to read the stories so they sometimes think, why should I have considered different, right? Because oftentimes we as human beings, we learn from somebody else's failures. Oh yeah. Right?
Yep.
Fortunately. And we want to, instead of having to be the example, learn from somebody else. Otherwise we end up being the example.
Absolutely.
And so I just tell people, ask yourself more questions, ask, or share stories about what you have done and what questions you would have asked now. As always, don't forget to subscribe to us here. Obviously, Talkin Shop. We're going to bring new episodes every week. We like to talk about things that are sometimes uncomfortable for the business owner to think about, but the reality of the world, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to run smarter, more profitable businesses. And I think everybody in the United States, specifically, our local customers, are really working on that right now, trying to find ways to be more profitable, but at the risk of cutting corners, right? We don't want to make those mistakes. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I think, in today's world, it's really easy to get distracted. I think it's easy to be sold, especially, on a good sales pitch will get you every time. And I think you have to think about things behind the scene, give the person an opportunity. If you see a price variance between two products, don't just automatically jump away from one. Ask them to sell you the product, right? Ask them why their product's worth the price. You might be surprised what you hear.
Yeah, I think just with the world we live in, everything seems to feel like you need to just make a decision now or do it right now. Like,
correct.
When you're making that big of a change in your business, it's worth the extra day or 5 days or whatever to kind of look back on all the things and make the right decision.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say is it only takes 24 hours a lot of times. They prove service. If it takes you 5 days to get information, well, if that's before I've spent my money, how hard is it going to be to get the service after the fact? Yep. So again, give yourself 24 hours to just ask some questions. See what kind of answers you get, Send an email at night. Send an email on the weekend. See how the response is there. Easy to be attentive when it's during business hours, right?
Yep.
But how fast would they get back to me outside of business hours? So my motivational quote for you to think about is the best view is often after the hardest climb. And I just remind people of that because a lot of times as business gets tough, the world gets tough, it's easy to clam up, but oftentimes it's setting you up for your next level, right?
Sure.
You're getting ready to level up. And a lot of times those that give up on the climb weren't meant for the next level.
Right.
And so just remember that climbing brings a new view. So the best view is often after the hardest climb.
The view from the top of the mountain is always great.
It is. Not many people make it there though.
Right.
So thanks for tuning in to Talkin Shop. As always, I am Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
Until next time, keep talking shop.